Thank you for joining me for this discussion of developing new products and services. There are a variety of topics discussed in this relatively short chapter. However, the topics generally fall into two categories: new product development and branding. Under product development, they talk about product development strategies, product lines, organizing for new products, product development process, etc. Under branding, they have brief discussions on what is branding, co-branding, and destination branding. Today we're going to focus a little bit on some of the material in both of those two major areas, but we're going to start by giving you some definitions of product and product line that are not included in your text that I think are important for differentiating between single products and various elements of a product line. Your text discussion of the development of new products gave one definition, the definition of a product line, and even I thought that might be a little bit problematic. So I wanted to present some definitions to give you an idea in case you hear people talking about this concept. A product line is a group of closely related products. So it's products in the same general category, as opposed to a product mix, where that includes all the products that are sold by a company. So the definition that they had in your text for product line is really probably closer to the definition for a product mix. Products mix width is the number of product lines that a company has. So each line is its own category or grouping, and all of those groupings together constitute or describe the width of your product mix. And then there's product line depth, and depth has to do within a single product line how many products you offer. Before we get into a discussion of some of the concepts discussed in Chapter 8 of your text, I did want to talk very briefly about the 6 different categories of new products. These categories are differentiated by how much effort it takes an organization, and effort is related to risk, and then also how new or different it is for the organization or for society in general. The 6 categories start at the bottom with cost reductions. In cost reductions, this is just a way of offering a product at a reduced cost. It really provides no innovation of any kind, and the product is not particularly new. Above that is repositioning, where a product as it currently exists is repositioned to serve another purpose. Then there's improvements. Improvements are more slight improvements as opposed to additions, where you combine products or combine a product with something else. And then you move up to new product lines. There's a whole new product line for your organization. And then you end with the highest category, which is the new to the world. These are completely innovative designs, not known by anybody. The product hasn't existed previously. They also, the new product lines and the new to the world, of course, offer the greatest risk for an organization, but with the greatest risk also comes the greatest benefit. Most organizations, if they're on the safe side, will focus on the bottom end, the cost reduction, repositionings, and improvements, because those offer the least amount of risk, and they can also be used to extend the product life cycle, a topic which we'll be talking about from the next chapter. One of the topics discussed in Chapter 8 was the product development strategies. And those are generally divided into the 2 broad categories of reactive strategies and proactive strategies. Reactive strategies, also called the follow the leader approach, those strategies are ones that you take if someone else has innovated before your organization. And then the proactive strategies are strategies that are used to try and develop new innovation, new product, new service mix elements that will put you ahead of your competition. The reactive strategies include the easiest, which is the defensive strategy. If somebody comes out with an innovation, you can respond by increasing your marketing, for example, for a time to blunt the effect of the new innovation from one of your primary competitors. If that isn't sufficient, one of the things you can do then is to imitate what they have done and basically create your own version of it. And that's particularly common in the tourism industry. If something works, other people will jump on it and create their own version of it. The second but better option is a version of that, an adaptation of it, where you also respond, but what you're hoping to do is to come in second but offer a product that is even better. So if somebody starts offering workout centers in their hotels, you would then offer workout facilities that are superior to that, or offer some spa elements that they don't offer. And then finally you have the responsive strategy. And the responsive strategy is where firms adapt to the demands of customers or consumers. And so customers or consumers are asking for something in their response to that particular thing. So it's a response more to the customer and less to your competition. Organizations, however, don't have to simply react to what's going on in the competitive environment. They can take proactive measures and they can try and innovate. The first two options under this category are closely aligned. One of them is research and development and the other is consumer orientation. In both of these, you are researching to find out what is needed. Research and development focuses on the newest innovations, whereas consumer orientation focuses on the needs and wants of the consumers, and then trying to develop new product service mix elements that will meet those needs. The entrepreneurial strategy, the third strategy, is the strategy where firms generate new ideas internally. That can be done usually because the people, for example, salespeople and so forth, have a pretty good feeling of what customers are looking for. So they may be able to develop some internal ideas for the innovation of products or services. You can also use acquisitions. You can buy the legal rights to a particular product. You could, in fact, buy another company. But often what you're trying to do is to get access to sell, manufacture, distribute a particular product. And then finally you can form alliances. Alliances between organizations, between manufacturers, for example, would allow you to, for both parties to benefit in this. And we're going to talk a little bit later about some co-branding operations that fall into this category. Another major section discussed in Chapter 8 is the new product development process. This section is particularly important because the activity that I'm going to have you do, the discussion topic for this particular week, requires you to develop an idea for a new product, and you can read the prompt to see a description of what they're looking for. And then once you have that new idea, which is step one in the process, you're asked to walk us through the other four steps. So how would someone take this idea and take it all the way through introduction into the market, the final step in the process? I do want to very quickly discuss 4 different definitions that are given in your book, and these are related to brand or branding. But I do want to point out in the beginning that these definitions are actually related to brand identity and not to the actual term brand. But we're going to go through them and discuss them in a little while. We'll talk a little bit more about brand identity versus branding. The brand, they define in the text, as the name, sign, symbol, design, or any combination of these that's used to identify the brand. And so, again, they're using the word identify. Then they have the brand name, that's part of the brand, and that's also consists of the words and letters. And sometimes those names are real recognizable words, and other times they're things like Xerox that have been created because they don't have any connotation or any meaning in any language. Brand mark is a symbol, logo, something that's used to identify the product, and that symbol, logo, could be trademarked. Trademark is a brand identity that has been given legal protection. So now that we have a better idea of what brand identity is all about, let's take a closer look at what we mean by brand or branding. And the next slide presents a brief video that tries to differentiate between the two.
And it seems to be this kind of mystery about like what is branding. Well, hopefully I'm going to clear the air of, first off, what branding is not, second off, what branding is, and third, how you can be intentional about your brand. And so again, if you look at the term brand or branding, it comes from a mark of ownership. So think of branding cattle with a branding iron, right? So that's where the term comes from. But companies ended up adopting that word branding to differentiate their company, their products and services from the rest. And so what a lot of people do is they think the traditional or the popular understanding of what a brand is as a noun is a brand is your logo, or it's your corporate identity system. It's your colors, your fonts, how you identify yourself. It's your tagline. Or it's your product, right? Coca-Cola or Nike, these are products, so the brand must be shoes or soda. That's not necessarily the case. And again, the traditional view of what branding is as a verb is often thought of as putting your logo on stuff, right? So if you go to some companies, they'll position themselves as a branding company, but really all they do is they get your logo and they put it on sports bottles and flash drives and different kind of marketing collateral. Or they think branding is marketing or advertising. Again, these are misconceptions of what a brand is and what branding is. And so it is not these things. I actually like Marty Neumeier's definition of what a brand is. If you read The Brand Gap or ZAG, Marty Neumeier defines a brand as a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or an organization. And I want to include into that, it's people's gut feeling about you as a person. Every single person has a personal brand because the people that know you have developed an opinion about you. Really, that's what it is. It's their perception, their opinion about you. It's your popularity, how you're known. So another way you could think of it is your reputation. That's what your brand is. So whereas the common understanding of what a brand is, people think it's what you say about yourself or what you say about your product or your company, when that's not the case. It's really what they say it is. And so if that's what a brand is, as a noun, it's people's gut feeling, you can't you can't design a brand because you can't design people's feelings or perceptions, but the best you can do is you can influence it, and that's where branding comes in. Branding is the art and the science of influencing public perception about a company, a product, a service, an organization, or a person. It's influencing people's understanding of your reputation. So that's what the art of branding is. The role of a brand agency is to help be intentional about how people see your company.
I hope you noted that the video on the previous slide presented a discussion of what I mentioned earlier, is that brand or branding is not the same thing as brand identity. And they present two of the most common definitions of brand and branding. First, that a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. It's basically the perception of the individual. It's the experience that they've had, and it's rooted based on what they know or how little they know, the experiences they've had with it, and the opinions of those people that they trust, significant others that are around them. Branding, however, is not a thing so much as an action. It is a verb. It's the art and science of influencing perceptions about a product, service, or organization. So an organization cannot make a brand. They can only take actions that they hope will lead people to develop a brand image in their own perceptions that matches what the organization is trying to do. So branding then is an intentional activity, and it's designed to try and influence these perceptions. The next slide presents an example, and it talks about McDonald's. Think about McDonald's a minute before you watch the video, and think about what is your perception of McDonald's.
I reference McDonald's a lot because I go to McDonald's. I love the silence that follows that statement. Like I just admitted to support dog fighting or something. How could you? McDonald's. It's fun telling people you go to McDonald's. They always give you that look like, oh, I didn't know I was better than you. No one admits to going to McDonald's. They sell 6 billion hamburgers a day. There's only 300 million people in this country. It's like, I'm not a calculus teacher, but I think everyone's lying. You ever been at McDonald's and you see a friend for a second, you're like, oh, crap. Eventually you're like, hey, what's going on? And they're just like, I'm just here for the 99-cent ATM. What are you doing here, Jim? I'm just meeting a hooker. Certainly not eating here, that's for sure. Yeah, he should be here by now. Because we all know better, right? We've all read the articles, seen those documentaries. It's the same message. Look, McDonald's is really bad for you. It's very high in fat and calories, and we don't even know where the meat comes from. And we're all like, that's disgusting. I'll have a Big Mac, a large fry, and a 2-gallon drum of Diet Coke. Because there's a McDonald's denial. And we all embrace it. No one's going in there innocent. We're walking into a red and yellow building with a giant M over it. What's this, a library? I'll get some fries while I'm here. Because those McDonald's fries are truly amazing, right? Has your mother ever made anything as good as a McDonald's fry? Not even close. We lie to ourselves when we eat McDonald's fries. We're like, oh, they're so thin, they couldn't be fattening. You ever eat too many McDonald's fries? Of course not! There's never enough of them. I'm tired of people acting like they're better than McDonald's. It's like you may have never set foot in McDonald's, but you have your own McDonald's. You know, maybe instead of buying a Big Mac, you read Us Weekly. Hey, that's still McDonald's. It's just served up a little different. Maybe your McDonald's is telling yourself that Starbucks Frappuccino is not a milkshake. Or maybe you watch Glee. It's all McDonald's. McDonald's of the soul. Momentary pleasure followed by incredible guilt, eventually leading to cancer.
In this video, Jim Gaffigan makes it very clear that while he enjoys McDonald's, there are a lot of people, while still going to McDonald's, who have a less than positive perception of the brand. And he equates at the end of the segment the idea of we all have our own McDonald's, whether it's eating McDonald's or not, and basically equating McDonald's with lowbrow activities. This is probably not the brand image that the McDonald's Corporation is striving to achieve, but it's the brand image that they have with a lot of people. One of the advantages we often have for marketing in the tourism sector is that we're often marketing not just a single component of the tourism sector, so you're not marketing just a single hotel often. What you're often marketing is the entire destination, and destination branding we'll discuss in just a few minutes. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk about the idea of co-branding, the idea of using multiple brands together to promote or to sell a single product, service, event, or cause. And the idea behind this is that by joining forces, the two brand names, and the brand names might not belong to the same parent corporation, but the two brand names work together to boost the overall impression, brand identity, and to help promote, sell, etc. So the two main types of this include ingredient co-branding, the use of popular brand as an ingredient or component of another brand. This is probably less likely in the tourism sector, although you do see examples of restaurants setting up service kiosks in major hotels or something of that nature. But more often what you're more likely to see is composite co-branding, where you use two popular brands in a way that they collectively offer a distinct product. And the idea here is that all the different brand identities within a destination, all of those brand components help provide a unique destination experience, and then we sell that experience in the form of our destination marketing. One commonly used example of a positive co-branding campaign that's used an awful lot is the combination of Airbnb with Flipboard. By now we should all be familiar with Airbnb, the room sharing app, but they combined several years ago now with Flipboard, which is a news aggregator. It collects news, topical information, content from a variety of sources and then shares that. That information then on Flipboard can be used for a variety of purposes, but it's tailored to each individual's desires. they combined Airbnb with Flipboard to create this experiences line. And the basic idea was that Airbnb users could take their lifestyle content and have it tailored to them according to the interest of the reader. So this partnership allowed Flipboard to expand their reach so that they reached new groups of people, Airbnb participants, and the Airbnb people got much greater content about what the different experiences are that were available in a destination. So that partnership helped both organizations to achieve their broader goals and to expand the size of the market that they were appealing to. These co-branding activities offer a number of advantages and disadvantages. The chief advantage is, of course, getting into new markets, reaching new people and new areas that you wouldn't have otherwise. There can be financial benefits. You can decrease the risk of going into a new venture by spreading it out with a partner. You can also, of course, see increased sales. Potential for package deals and promotions. Bundling packages together is more likely to lead to sales, and so those kinds of bundles benefit both parties involved. And there can be a positive spillover effect where you get a higher perceived quality because of your association with the other brand. There are some disadvantages, and they're closely tied to the advantages discussed earlier. One of the problems is, while you're moving into new markets, you run the risk of being overexposed, having too much exposure in a market. And second, if there's a change anywhere in either organization or both organizations, that could lead to having a negative effect. You can have a negative spillover where the other brand does something or has a negative image, and that damages your reputation rather than having a positive effect on it. And you can have the dilution of the brand because of its association with new product. The type of branding that we're talking about associated with the tourism industry is usually referred to as destination branding, and the idea is to capture those distinct elements that you have within your destination and to capture those within the brand, and then figure out some way to communicate those unique aspects of your brand that help to define your brand, such as identity, personality, and image. Thank you today for joining me for this discussion on new product development and destination branding in the tourism industry. There are a number of other topics that are discussed in the text, so make sure that you're studying the text material. And as always, if you have a question with something you've heard in the video, if you have a question over some of the material in the chapter, or just want to chat, drop me a line at chuck.lubers@usd.edu, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. Thank you.